Spine-chilling alert. 7 sinister reasons Daggerlin is haunted. Discover hidden evils. Run now. The air in Daggerlin was thick with dread, each breath like inhaling shadows. Lisa had hoped for a fresh start, but instead, their new house wore the scars of time like a shroud. Cracked walls, a roof that seemed to sag under the weight of its own history. This place felt alive, and not in a good way. The houses on their street, standing in silent rows, were like old sentinels, staring blankly as an unwelcome presence. "Mom, are we really going to live here?" Chloe's voice trembled, underlining the unease in the as Lisa unpacked. The chill around them whispered. Cold sneaked into their bones, even as she smiled at her daughter, trying to numb the painful memories of the divorce. The townsfolk were a quirky mix. They greeted her with friendly smiles, but their eyes held a glimmer of secrets. Something was off, and the hum in the air felt like a warning. Just give it time, she told herself, though doubt gnawed at her insides that night. After putting Chloe to bed, Lisa heard a low creaking, a whisper beneath the stillness of their surroundings. She brushed it off, attributing it to the old house. It was just wood settling, right? But the sound morphed, growing into footsteps shuffling outside the door. Heart racing, she crept to the window, her breath hitching in her throat. A shadow darted past, slipping into nothingness, sending a shiver down her spine. She leaned back, panic surging. Had they really moved to a haunted town? The following morning, a county official knocked. Lisa forced a smile, but unease washed over her. His reassurance felt too polished, too contrived. "Everything's fine in Daggerlin," he said, eyes lingering just a heartbeat too long on the old house behind her. Disquiet ballooned in her chest, filling the space where hope should have been. As days slipped by, oddities multiplied. A flickering streetlight that seemed to blink in warning, glimpses of movement behind drawn curtains, laughter that turned to silence as she approached. Lisa tried to shake the feeling. After all, it was just a small town. But paranoia scuttled across her skin like insects. Chloe seemed unfazed, her teenage curiosity leading her astray. "I'm gonna check out the attic," she chirped one day, bounding off before Lisa could protest. Hours later, Lisa returned, exhaustion clawing at her. Chloe sat on the floor, a tattered journal in hand, eyes wide with a mix of horror and fascination. "Mom, look, 7 reasons Daggerlin is haunted." Each entry peeled back the layers of a town dripping in betrayal, heartbreak, and a missing mayor. Lisa felt the chill creep back in, clinging to her like an unwelcome ghost. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The night Chloe vanished, a storm raged outside, wind howling like a banshee. All that was left was a panicked phone call that cut off into static. "Mom, silence." "No." The shadows grew thick outside, twisting the trees into grotesque shapes. Lisa's heart pounded, raw dread in her throat. She stumbled through the rainstorm, the streets of Daggerlin cloaked in darkness, each abandoned house mocking her futile search. Every step echoed the tales from the journal, beckoning her deeper into the town's twisted secrets. She stopped, straining her ears against the storm. The faintest wail, perhaps, that sent icy fingers crawling down her back. "Chloe." The name clawed its way out of her mouth, desperation seeping into her voice. Would she uncover the truth in time? Every corner harbored darkness, every shadow held. Whispers of victims passed, and Lisa felt the town close in, a vice tightening around her. What if she didn't find her daughter before Daggerlin laid claim to yet another soul? Rain lashed at Lisa's face, blurring her vision, but she pressed on. Every step felt heavier, like the ground was pulling her down, desperate to keep her there. Thunder rumbled overhead, the sky split open, and for a moment, the stinging rain felt like sharpened needles. She wiped her face, shoving wet hair out of her eyes that darted nervously around searching, waiting. Chloe. The name echoed through the empty streets, lost to the storm. Each step felt like an intrusion into the whispers of Daggerlin, secrets floating just out of reach. Then she heard it again, a sob carried by the wind. A glimmer of hope sparked within her, so quickly extinguished by panic. Was it her daughter? Or was it just the town, taunting her? Lisa turned towards the sound and stumbled into a narrow alleyway. The darkness wrapped around her like a cloak. The streetlights flickered above, illuminating graffiti on the bricks, a cry for help. Maybe? She stepped closer, peering deeper into the blackness, her pulse quickening with a mix of fear and desperation. Chloe. The word slipped from her lips like a prayer. But instead of an answer, shadows shifted at the edge of her vision. Figures emerged, thin and elongated, with faces hidden in shadow. They stood there watching. A paralyzing fear gripped her, and she backed away until her spine hit the cold, damp wall. These figures, were they of this world? Or the next? Leave this town if you can. One of them hissed, voice crackling like the static on her phone. Daggerlin takes it, always takes. Lisa's breath caught, the icy dread pooling in her stomach. She knew then that she wasn't just fighting for her daughter, she was fighting for her life. With a sudden burst of courage, she dashed back towards the street, limbs propelled by sheer survival instinct. Thunder boomed as she raced past the empty houses, perceiving the haunting eyes of the townsfolk watching her from the shadows. Find her? They seemed to whisper, each voice an icy blade slicing into her heart. As she turned the corner, a figure emerged from the haze, a child, standing amidst the storm, drenched but unharmed. Relief washed over her. Chloe. She screamed, surging forward, arms outstretched. But as Lisa reached for her daughter, something seized her ankle. She stumbled, falling to the slick pavement, where the darkness crawled over her like a living thing. The child's face morphed, the innocence abandoned, a twisted grin replacing it. You shouldn't have come here. The voice, a mockery of Chloe's, echoed in her ears. Lisa's heart thudded painfully as she dragged herself backwards, clawing at the ground, trying to escape the darkness that throbbed at her heels. No, please. She grasped desperately at reality, every ounce of her being now fighting against the relentless pull of the shadows. Suddenly, in a flash of intense fury, she caught a glimpse of something shimmering in the distance, a door, framed in light, glimmering like a beacon. Hope surged through her veins. Could she reach it? She pushed herself up and ran, dodging clinging fingers that tried to pull her back into Daggerlin's hungry maw. But the darkness churned and twisted, and every step felt like running through thick mud. As she neared the door, the shadows shrieked, voices rising into a cacophony, a symphony of despair and rage. Just as her fingers grazed the door handle, an icy hand closed around her wrist, squeezing tighter than iron. No, she wailed, her heart racing against the tempest outside. Desperation surged within her, battling against the steel grip of Daggerlin. What happened next was lost moment to moment, chaos erupting when the world seemed to close in. Did she open the door? Or did Daggerlin drag her into its suffocating grip forever? As darkness threatened to swallow her whole, a flicker of light gleamed in her peripheral vision. One last glimpse of hope. Was it Chloe? Or had they both already vanished into the town's insatiable hunger? With the echo of her daughter's name hanging in the air, the walls of reality seemed to bend, and just before everything faded, she swore she could hear a faint whisper resonating. You cannot escape where the shadows stretched beyond the door. Lisa knew she was faced with a choice that would seal their fate. What awaited on the other side? The truth, the danger, or worse? The door loomed, radiating a strange warmth that contrasted with the icy grip around Lisa's wrist. The shadows wavered at its edges, howling in frustration as if her very hope was a forbidden fruit. With every ounce of strength, she twisted her wrist, feeling the cold fingers tighten, a vice of despair intent on keeping her from escape. No, 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 she gasped, wine-red droplets dancing in the rain as her heart thudded violently against her ribcage. The storm raged, but the shadows screamed louder, faces twisting in agony, each wail piercing through her like lightning. They were angry, livid that she even dared to reach for salvation. The flickering light behind the door shifted, drawing her gaze. It pulsed like a heartbeat, throwing glimmers across the slick pavement, illuminating the terrified faces of those once familiar to her. Were they the ghosts of the town or living reminders of their doom? She couldn't tell anymore. Chloe. The name slipped out again, sharp and desperate. The child she saw only moments before had vanished, leaving behind an echo that chilled her deeper than the whipping rain. With her free hand, she clawed at the shadows that clung to her legs, releasing muffled cries as she fought against the suffocating despair. Daggerlin wants you, Lisa, hissed one figure, voice low and draped in malice. You think you can leave? You want to take her back. The grip tightened further, the pain twisting through her bones. She felt the memory of Chloe flicker in her mind, a fragile light in encroaching darkness. Let me go. I'll do anything, she screamed, her breath escaping like a whirlwind. The shadows relished in her fear, whispering their judgments. You're not worthy. You brought her here. She had come to Daggerlin seeking her daughter, but the town wasn't merely a backdrop. It was alive, feeding on fear, craving the warmth of despair. Every moment in its clutches was a battle against her own faltering sanity. She felt like a ghost, half of her tethered to this existence while the other half was drawn towards the abyss. Gripping the luminous doorknob, she grapples with the sensation of raw power, like it might burst through her fingers. If you're Daggerlin, give me my daughter. A surge of bravado burned in her veins, but doubt coiled its way around her heart. Daggerlin doesn't give, it takes, said another shadow, creeping forward. The stench of wet earth and decay filled the air around her as the figure stepped into the dim light. A face familiar yet grotesque merged in the pulsating illumination, a reflection twisted with malice. Lisa's stomach dropped. It was her neighbor, Mrs. Jenkins. Her handsome face warped into something monstrous and twisted. You have no idea what you're asking for. You can't seek what doesn't want to be found. Release me. Lisa's voice cracked. The shadows were tightening their grasp, walls of darkness closing in like the jaws of a beast. But in that suffocating moment, her resolve solidified. She plunged forward, the door handle biting into her palm. I want her back. I refuse to be another casualty of your hunger. With a heavy lurch, Lisa pulled the door open, a blinding light cascading forth, illuminating the dark alleyway, and the screams reached a fever pitch. The shadows shrieked, their shrill cries echoing through the tempest. As the light engulfed her, she let out a desperate scream for Chloe, the sound fading into the maelstrom of dread. Just as the brightness enveloped her, the hands around her wrist released, falling lifeless like a marionette cut from its strings. She stumbled into the blinding light, but the shadows lunged to reclaim her. Was this her salvation or an even deeper descent into madness? And as she crossed the threshold, the blaring storm was replaced by uneasy silence. The shadows receded, whispering a chilling promise. You can't escape the truth. What awaits you is far worse. Lisa blinked, trying to adjust to the sudden brightness, feeling the shift in air around her. Was this another trap? Or a new reality she couldn't comprehend? Before her lay an open field, stark contrast to the chaos of Daggerlin, yet the weight of anxiety loomed heavy. Everything felt surreal, as if reality had warped in the swift transition. Where was Chloe? And there, in the distance, a figure seemed to hover. Was it her daughter? Or a mirage conjured by her hopeful heart? With dread flooding her veins anew, she ran towards it, only to feel the ground trembling beneath her feet. The shadows were not far behind, calling her name, weaving a dark web through reality. The hunt was far from over. What awaited her in this new realm? And could she truly escape Daggerlin's clutches? The field responded with a hush, holding its breath as she approached the figure, the air thick with foreboding. The true nightmare was about to unfold. Lisa's heart pounded as she sprinted across the field, each step echoing in the unsettling stillness that enveloped her. The figure ahead shimmered like a flickering candle in the dark, both alluring and terrifying. Was it Chloe? Or simply another illusion crafted by the spectral hands of Daggerlin? Closer she got, the more the air thickened with malevolent energy. A sour taste filled her mouth, as if the very landscape conspired against her. The shadows, those dark remnants of dread she thought she had escaped, crept along the edges of her vision, lingering like pungent smoke curling just out of reach. "Chloe!" she cried out, desperation clawing at her throat. The figure paused only for a heartbeat before continuing to hover, unmoving, calling her forward. The ground shook violently beneath her, the surface cracking, splitting like something alive. "No!" Lisa gasped, stumbling as she fought to keep her balance. Each tremor vibrated through her, a warning she couldn't ignore. Daggerlin had shifted once more, reshaping itself, and she was still trapped within its clutches. She locked her eyes on the distant figure, trying to will it into clarity. "Stay there. I'm coming." But the moment she spoke, the figure dissipated, fading into mist, leaving nothing but a swirling haze. It wasn't her daughter. It was a trap. Like all the others, dark laughter echoed from the shadows, forming a chorus that crept into her mind, taunting her. "You think you can escape?" they mocked. "You belong to Daggerlin now, and your daughter? She is lost just as you are." The ground heaved again, buckling beneath her, sending her to her knees. With trembling fingers, she clawed at the dirt, willing it to give her strength. But the fear suffocated her. What if she truly was lost? What if she never found Chloe? The thought twisted her insides like a knife, twisting deeper with each breath. And then she heard it, a soft, sweet voice, like music floating on the wind. "Mommy!" it beckoned from somewhere within the dark embrace of the shadows. "Mommy, help!" Her heart leapt with a mix of hope and dread, sparked by the familiarity of that voice. Lisa flung herself to her feet, racing towards the sound, ignoring the deepening fissures and the shadows that grasped at her ankles with icy fingers. "I'm coming, sweetheart," she yelled, forcing back tears. But each step forward felt more weighted, the shadows clawing higher, more insidious. "Lisa," they whispered, emerging from the depths of despair and beckoning her to quit. "Turn back. She is not yours to find. Be quiet. I will find her." Gathering every ounce of willpower, she pressed on, the light of the small glimmer in the distance pulling her forward suddenly. The ground beneath her erupted in a torrent of shadowy figures. They rose like monsters from the depths of a forsaken realm, gnarled hands reaching for her, their eyes glowing with malice. "You should never have come here," one screeched as it lunged, grasping her ankle. Lisa kicked out, heart racing. She felt the grip loosen as she stumbled back, dragging herself into a sprint. Panic surged through her. The mere act of running felt like an act of defiance against the encroaching darkness. As the last traces of the figure faded, the shadows shrieked in fury, a banshee wail that pierced the stillness. "You will pay for your escape." The air crackled, the shadows twisting and merging, becoming a whirlpool of torment that spun around her, the ground itself trembling with rage. Just as she thought she had broken free, the darkness splayed wide, revealing a new path, a corridor lined with faint whispers and flickering images of Chloe's laughter. Caught in a vortex of choice and dread, Lisa hesitated, torn between fleeing and delving deeper, a choice between the familiar trap and the lure of hope. Just a little closer. The whispers coaxed, insidious and tantalizing. But who knew what lay ahead? What if this was only another deception? And like a forgotten nightmare creeping back into the waking world, the shadows swelled behind her. What if running forward led her into a more terrifying abyss, one that even Daggerlin couldn't reach? She stood on the precipice, pulse racing, breaths coming in ragged gasps. "Mommy!" The voice echoed again, clearer and more desperate now. Would her love leap into the depths? Or would the shadows consume her soul before she could answer that fateful call? The choice sparked fear, igniting a new layer of dread. A decision had to be made. In Daggerlin, nothing was as it seemed. Did survival mean embracing the unknown, or holding back from the abyss? And as the ground shook anew, Lisa knew the answers were just as elusive as hope itself. The true horror of Daggerlin, without a doubt, was just beginning. Lisa forced herself to take a step forward, every ounce of her instinct screaming for her to flee. The corridor beckoned, draped in an eerie glow that flickered like dying stars. "Mommy!" The voice cracked like thunder, cutting through her hesitation. It pierced the fog of shadows that smothered her courage. She stumbled into the corridor, the air thickening around her like molasses, clinging to her skin. Each breath tasted of iron and ash. The whispers grew louder, rising and falling like a twisted hymn of despair. Lisa pressed her palms to her ears, trying to block out the haunting melody, but it seeped through her fingers, invading her thoughts. "Find her, only you can shut up," she shouted, the sound echoing off the walls, retaliating against the lies. But the laughter that followed was low and sinister, rippling through the corridor, growing sharper, more mocking. "Not so brave now, are we?" The corridor twisted, bending around her like a snake coiling its prey. Each step felt like a descent into madness. Faint images danced along the walls, memories she didn't recognize. Faces twisted in sorrow, shadows flickering just beyond the reach of her vision. Were they lost souls? Souls who had stumbled into Daggerlin and never emerged? "Mommy," the voice was softer now, more vulnerable. It licked at her heart, fading like a dying ember. Lisa surged forward, desperation fueling her feet. "I'm coming, Chloe. Just hold on." As she turned a corner, the darkness thickened, warping around her like a tar pit. She bit her lip to stave off a scream as grotesque figures emerged from the walls, faces twisted in agony, mouths moving in silent screams. Their eyes were shiny, reflecting a deep fear that mirrored her own. "What do you want?" Lisa gasped, trying to control the wild rhythm of her heart. The figures only stared, their gaze piercing, suffocating. Just as she felt a chill brush against her skin, they melted away, leaving only the shadows whispering. "Find her or lose everything." The air darkened further, and a shudder passed through Lisa's body. She fought against the cold hand of despair creeping into her soul. But this was Daggerlin. This place thrived on fear and despair. It was alive, and it fed on those emotions. "Chloe!" she cried, her voice breaking, the sound pulling at the shadows that twisted and writhed around her. For a moment, silence stretched, thick and oppressive, wrapping around her throat. Then there was a lull, a fleeting stillness. In that breath, clarity struck. "You have to prove yourself." A voice intoned, low and sinister. "Prove? Choose, will you embrace love or sacrifice yourself?" The question hung in the air, heavy and ominous, like a dark promise. Lisa's gut twisted. To embrace love meant facing whatever waited at the end of this corridor. But to sacrifice herself? Wasn't that selfish? A betrayal of the daughter she loved? Before she could find the answer, shadows lunged from all sides, clawing at her, their fingers icy, pulling her back into the void. She fought against their grip, bracing her feet against the ground, but they were relentless, dragging her closer to a yawning abyss. "Mommy!" The plea resonated through the darkness, filling her with determination and dread. "No!" Lisa screamed, feeling the earth tremble beneath her. She threw herself forward, breaking free of their grasp, hurling herself deeper into the nightmare. As she stumbled further into the corridor, she could see flickers of light ahead. "Chloe?" Hope sparked within her like fire igniting dry brush. But the shadows convulsed behind her, surging with rage. "You will never leave," they howled, their voices now a cacophony of hatred and despair. Rushing forward, Lisa forced her limbs to move despite the overwhelming terror threatening to drown her. Adrenaline pumped through her veins. "I will find you," she yelled, desperate for her daughter's voice to guide her through. But then she saw it. A dark door at the corridor's end, a portal that shimmered with doom. Would she break through this time? Or was it merely another illusion, another trap laid by Daggerlin, designed to ensnare the desperate? "Mommy!" The call was softer now and seemed to drift away. "Chloe!" she roared, panic rising within her. Without hesitation, She charged straight toward the door, heart racing, shadows snapping at her heels. But as she reached for the handle, the darkness pooled around her, forming a barrier that pulsed ominously. Was this it? Her salvation or her damnation? In that moment, as despair clawed at her heart, Lisa felt the fabric of Daggerlin's horrors closing in around her, the choice looming larger than life. What awaited her beyond the door? Would she find Chloe? Or would she succumb completely to the shadows, becoming another lost soul within the depths of Daggerlin? Lisa's hand hovered over the door handle, the cold metal sending a jolt through her arm. The shadows writhed and twisted, moaning with an anger that pulsed in her ears like a relentless drumbeat. Every instinct told her to pull back, to abandon the door and run. But Chloe's voice, a fragile thread of hope, pulled her forward. "Mommy!" The plea echoed again, softer, desperate. Lisa clenched her teeth, heart hammering as she forced the handle down. Metal creaked as the door opened, revealing a dimly lit room beyond, swathed in an unsettling stillness that contrasted sharply with the chaos behind her. She stepped inside, the door slamming shut with a heavy thud, cutting off the shadow's cacophony. Quiet enveloped her like a suffocating shroud, and Lisa looked around. The air was thick with dust, swirling in slivers of dim light. The walls were lined with peeling wallpaper that dripped like melted wax, colors fading as if drained by years of sorrow. "What is this place?" she whispered, each word echoing ominously in the enclosed space. The room stretched before her, revealing a series of unsettling images framed on the walls, portraits of empty eyes that seemed to follow her as she moved. As she approached one painting, the face twisted in anguish, mouth opening wide in a scream that seemed too real. She stumbled back, nausea rising with the realization that these were not mere paintings but remnants of souls trapped in this wretched place. "Chloe?" she called again, voice trembling as fear clawed at her throat. But only silence met her ears, unyielding and heavy. Then she spotted a faint glow at the far end of the room. It beckoned to her, luminous and warm, and for a moment, she dared to hope. Rushing toward the light, her footsteps echoed eerily across the wooden floor, and with each step, a low growl began to reverberate through the air. The noise sank into her bones, a warning, a challenge. But Lisa pressed on, heart racing, desperate to grasp that flicker of warmth. She reached the light and found not her daughter, but a small, battered box sitting on a pedestal, glowing softly. Cautiously, she reached out, fingers trembling as they brushed the surface. The box felt warm against her skin, pulsing like a heartbeat, inviting her to open it. In that moment, the shadows began to swirl around the edge of the room, their far-off murmurs growing louder, more frantic. "You shouldn't be here," they hissed. "Flee before it's too late." Ignoring the warnings, Lisa lifted the box lid. Inside lay a single, ornate key shimmering with an otherworldly light. It pulsed gently, and as Lisa picked it up, the shadows recoiled, shrieking in fury. "Give it back. It belongs to us," they howled, voices a terrifying chorus of anguish and rage. Lisa's pulse quickened as she clutched the key, feelings of dread wrestling with a surge of power. With it, she felt the weight of fate resting heavily upon her. What did this key unlock? Just then, the shadows surged, turning viscous, spilling across the floor as if alive. They lunged toward her, whispering what sounded like her daughter's name, a distorted echo that twisted her heart. "Chloe!" she cried, the name tearing itself from her throat as the shadows merged around her, forming a vast wall of darkness, ready to consume her whole. "What do you want from me?" "Sacrifice," they hissed, forming claws that reached out for her, their icy touch nearing. In a moment of fierce clarity, Lisa realized she had to make a choice. The key glistened in her palm, tantalizing, as the shadows pressed in, an insatiable void desperate to claim her. Would she confront the darkness to save Chloe? Or would she surrender, becoming another lost soul in Daggerlin? The answer hung in the air, as thick as the gathering darkness, and time stood still. Suddenly, a distant sound shattered the silence. A door creaked open somewhere behind her, spilling light into the room, offering a glimpse of salvation. As she turned toward the sound, panic surged. Who was there? What lay beyond? The shadows howled in discontent, the key in her hand pulsing like a relentless drum, urging her to choose her fate. The door that swung open shone with radiant light, promising escape or perhaps even more horrors. What would she find if she stepped through? Would the answer lead her to Chloe or deeper into the nightmare of Daggerlin? The light from the door flickered like a candle in a storm, and for a heartbeat, Lisa hesitated. The shadows were so close now, coiling around her ankles like grasping fingers, pulsing with a desperate urgency that chilled her to the core. "Mommy!" Chloe's voice echoed once more, close yet distant, a haunting melody wrapped in sorrow. She could almost see her daughter's face, beams of innocence trapped within this hellish nightmare. The thought of losing her again pushed Lisa into action. She took a step toward the glowing doorway, feeling its warmth radiate against her skin, drenching her in hope. But just as she moved, the shadows surged forward, writhing in chaos, mouths forming as they screamed her name. Each guttural cry struck like a whip, sharp and blistering, pulling her back into their fold. The key in her hand became a weight, heavy and cold, pushing down where hope had begun to bloom. "Run!" The shadows howled, their voices layered with palpable fear. "You cannot trust the light." Lisa's heart raced, caught between the spectral light of safety and the consuming darkness that sought to claim her. What if the shadows were right? What if the radiant escape was merely a trap? A sinister lure promising salvation yet leading to another layer of Daggerlin's torment. "Please," she whimpered, tears brimming as the shadows twisted in anticipation, eager to feast on her doubt. But there was no time for doubt, not now. She had to act. With a surge of resolve blooming in her chest, Lisa bolted toward the door, the key clutched tightly as she thundered across the floor. The shadows lunged, forming tendrils of darkness, their icy claws grazing her skin. She screamed, fighting through the fear that clawed at her mind. "Let me go!" She reached the threshold, arms outstretched, and felt the warmth of the radiant light flood over her as she crossed, a barrier breaking the darkness's grip. The world shifted, the room spun, and Lisa tumbled through, landing on cold ground. Blinking against the brightness, she gasped for air, heart pounding. This wasn't the sanctuary she envisioned, but another chamber, filled with undulating shadows that writhed in discontent around the edges. Not so easily freed, they shrieked, voices intertwining. Lisa scrambled to her feet and looked around. She stood in a larger, underground cavern, stalactites like fangs hanging from the ceiling, dripping water that echoed like distant whispers. The shadows coalesced, forming a menacing figure cloaked in darkness, eyes that glowed like dying embers. "Welcome, wayward soul," it intoned, voice like gravel scraping against stone. "You seek your daughter? Then you have chosen the path of pain. What do you want?" Lisa stuttered, inching back, dread settling in her stomach like a stone. "Your courage is commendable," it said, amusement lacing its words. "But courage alone cannot save you. The key you possess binds you to this realm. Only by releasing it will you uncover the truth about Chloe. Only then stop." She interrupted, a fresh wave of fear coursing through her. "How do I save my daughter?" The figure leaned closer, darkness swirling around it like a fog. "To retrieve your child, sacrifice is needed. Only when you embrace the darkness within can you hope to reclaim what you have lost." The shadows erupted in a cacophony of wails, their whispers rising to a fever pitch. Lisa's heart raced. Sacrifice? What did it demand? She couldn't trust it, yet the terrifying pull in her heart urged her to listen, to understand the threat looming over Chloe. "What do I have to give?" she asked, chilled to the bone. The figure smiled, revealing a mouth lined with jagged teeth. "Your fear and your light." A shudder coursed through her, clenching her throat. What kind of cost would that come with? Before she could contemplate further, the ground shook and fissures opened a gaping maw in the cavern floor. The shadows swirled around, hungry, beckoning her to join them. Time was slipping away. Either she surrendered to fear, or she fought back. As the cavern plunged into chaos, Lisa knew there was no turning back. One choice remained. But what if the darkness only promised more despair? Chloe! She screamed into the swirling void, a plea swallowed by the shadows. She had to act. But would it save her daughter or damn them both? The ground quaked louder, and a deafening roar echoed from the chasm below. What awaited in the depths of Daggerlin? Would she conquer the darkness, or would it consume her entirely? The chasm yawned wider, its edges jagged and menacing, a grotesque mouth eager to swallow anything in its path. Lisa's mind raced. She could still hear Chloe, a fragile whisper lost in the cacophony filling the air. Was this how it ended? Here, in this wretched underworld where shadows thrived and hope was a faint flicker? Do not fear the dark. The figure crooned, shadows wrapping around its body like a loveress embrace. Embrace it, let it consume you, and you shall find strength. In that moment, Lisa felt it, a twinge of desperation mingling with exhilaration. Could fear truly be a weapon? Gripping the key tight, she took a breath, her lungs heavy with dread. Enough, she shouted, defiance spilling out aggressively. I can't trust you. The shadows recoiled as if struck, their moans turning into shrieks of anger. Foolish woman, you think your light can withstand the night? You are bound to us whether you accept it or not. A rush of wind howled through the cavern, extinguishing the flickers of warmth surrounding her. Darkness snaked closer, wrapping around her wrist like a serpent, its tendrils reaching inwards, curling around her heart. In that moment of panic, Lisa remembered she had faced darkness before. Back when Chloe fell ill, the isolation, the bite of despair that had cut through her. This was just another battle, wasn't it? She had fought for her daughter then, and she would fight again now. Chloe, she called into the swirling mass, voice trembling but resolute. I'm coming for you. The shadows hissed, their voices blending into a chaotic chorus. She is lost. You cannot save her. You will only serve yourself to the darkness. But they underplayed her will. In the grip of terror, Lisa understood that fear was a double-edged sword. Could destroy her or empower her. Igniting a flicker of courage, she pushed deeper into her own heart, drawing from the memories of laughter and love shared with her daughter. Chloe is not lost, she shouted. You underestimate the bond we share. The cavern shivered, the shadows seeming to recoil from her determination. Releasing the key with both hands, she felt it slip from her grasp and fall, the sound echoing like a discordant melody against stone. Then fight, the figure screamed, lips pulling back over razor teeth. You'll need it. With renewed vigor, Lisa stepped towards the chasm, each step echoing in her mind like a heartbeat. I choose to fight with my light. You think you own the darkness? No, it is merely a part of me. The shadows writhed, hissing and screeching, a tempest trying to drag her back into despair. But she fought, each thought of Chloe fueling her spirit. Suddenly, a strange glow began to ripple through the ground, illuminating the cavern in hues of ice blue and fiery red. The shadows screeched louder, panic unfurling through them like a wildfire. What is happening? The figure snarled, blood-red embers glowing brighter in its eyes. Light, Lisa shouted, fear mingling with exhilaration. You cannot consume what you do not understand. The ground quaked violently. The shadows howled as the light expanded, pushing them back from the chasm's edge. Lisa felt the warmth envelop her, coursing through her like she'd never known. Suddenly, the ground beneath her feet shattered, opening wide, greedy jaws of darkness. Mommy! Chloe's voice rang out, clearer and nearer now, breaking through the terror like a beacon. Hold on, sweetheart, Lisa cried, reaching for the sound, knowing she was close. The cavern rumbled, shadows swirling back in terror, and in that fleeting second, she leaped forward, arms outstretched toward the voice. The moment hung in the air, suspended, a breath held. Would she grasp her daughter's hand and pull her back from the brink, or slip into the abyss of shadows? In the heart of the chaos, a blinding flash erupted. The shadows shrieked, their forms distorting into grotesque shapes as the light rushed in like a flood. All Lisa could do was pray that this journey would not end in darkness. Would their bond be enough to pull them through? Or would they both be consumed by the night? The chasm roared, and the shadows writhed in agony. Time was running out. She had to decide, and fast. Light exploded, overwhelming Lisa's senses. The shadows convulsed, dark figures melting like wax before the scorching flame. She felt her pulse quickening, fear and exhilaration colliding in a whirlpool inside her chest. This was it. This was the moment. She had to push through. "Chloe!" she screamed, diving into the light, but the world twisted, the chasm morphing around her like a living thing. She reached out, hands stretching into the blinding brightness. The voice of her daughter echoed, enchanting and haunting. "Mommy, help me." "No." The dark whispers slithered back, rising from the depths with mocking laughter. "You cannot hear her. What you want is a mirage. A cruel game set by forces far beyond your understanding." With each syllable, the chasm's yawning mouth craved submission, an abyss beckoning her down, down, into eternal night. Clinging to the memories of Chloe's laughter, Lisa steadied herself against the chaos. She knew fear could be her ally. "Shut up," she shouted to the shadows, feeling her daughter's presence like a charge in the air. "I will not be your puppet." Fighting the urge to recoil, she broke free, heart racing. "Chloe, I'm coming." The ground pitched violently, crackling like lightning beneath Lisa's feet. The shadows shrieked, their forms twisting and contorting, struggling against the radiant glow pulsating from her. With each step, the cavern shuddered, walls closing in and threatening to crush her. She would not back down. Then, a familiar warmth flickered in her mind, the soft touch of Chloe's hand. "Just hold on to me," it whispered, a melody of hope cutting through the din. The connection grounded her. "Hang on, sweetheart," Lisa screamed, throwing everything she had into the light pouring forth from her core, igniting every dark crevice around her. The cavern ignited in a dazzling burst of blue and crimson colors, illuminating shapes that transcended horrors. Whispers morphed into desperate cries, the shadows recoiling as they writhed, their grip slackening. Such desperation. The figure hissed, though its voice trembled now. "You won't escape this fate." But the luminous glow intensified, transforming into a blazing wall. Lisa pushed forward, forcing the beam against the darkness with everything she had left in her. Felt like a weight lifting, the air crackling with power. Suddenly, the echoes warped, and with them, Chloe's voice emerged again. "Mommy, reach for me," Lisa cried, stretching towards the sound that filled her with more resoluteness than fear. It glimmered like a distant star amidst the chaos. Yet the earth bucked beneath her. The shadows screeched and hissed, their anger palpable. "You're risking everything. You'll lose it all if you fight. We are the torment you cannot escape." Their taunts thrummed inside Lisa, like nails scraped against wood, digging deep. She took a step forward, the sweet warmth vastly overpowering the cold fear of the shadows. "You're wrong. I'm not alone. Chloe needs me." Through the cacophony, she felt it Chloe's hand, small yet fervently clasping hers. The sensation ignited a fierce fire within, emboldening her step. But just as victory pressed against her brow, shadows erupted, swirling violently. They coalesced into a monstrous shape, a twisted representation of every nightmare she'd ever had. "Give in," it bellowed, smoke curling like serpents, "or lose her forever." "No," Lisa shouted, clenching Chloe's hand tighter. Fear clawed at her heart, the din of despair echoing louder. She teetered between blind hope and the crushing reality of loss. Then a rumble rocked the cavern, shaking her resolve. Could she really save her daughter? Was she strong enough to face what lay ahead? As the light flickered above her like a dying star, Lisa's breath froze. The ground quaked violently, and just like that, the blinding brilliance flickered. Would they both fall prey to the shadows? The figures twinkled with malevolence, the air thick with pulsing darkness. There was no turning back now because in the depths of chaos, Lisa realized something terrifying. The fight was just beginning. What awaited her at the heart of the chasm would test her resolve in ways she never dreamed. Would love withstand the ultimate test? Or would the ultimate sacrifice demand a price too high? The cavern shuddered, seemingly alive, waiting for the next move. Lisa stood, trapped between shadows and light, determination surging within her as she clutched Chloe's hand. The darkness writhed around them, teasingly close yet repelled by the warmth of their bond. "I want to let go," she gasped, her voice trembling yet fierce, fueled by a mother's love. "Mommy, I'm scared," Chloe whispered, still lost in the tempest, her small grip shaking with fear. But their connection pulled them closer together, the flickers of hope igniting the promise of reunion. From the depths of the cavern, the grotesque figure loomed, its voice resonating like thunder. "You think love can save you? You are bound to the darkness you have always been. Daggerlin thrives on despair, and you will sacrifice everything to escape." "No," Lisa shouted defiantly. "You don't own me. You don't own my daughter." Each word rang out, and with each utterance, streams of light burst from within them, illuminating the air, pushing back the shadows that clutched and clawed. The cavern murmured with agitation, the anger of the darkness vibrating through the floor as its fury echoed off the walls. Steeling her heart, Lisa took a staggering step forward, each beat of her heart aligning with the pulsing glow that emanated from her and Chloe. "We are stronger than you think," she declared, her voice unwavering. "You will lose her," the figure thundered, mouths opening wide in sickening laughter, a taunting chorus of despair mingling with the shadows' frantic shrieks. "Just give in. Let the darkness claim you." With a sudden rush, swirling shadows lunged again, trying to envelop them like a storm. Under the weight of their dread, Lisa felt as though she might break. But a stronger will pushed against her. The memory of laughter, the warmth of bedtime stories, and days spent in sunlight. She felt Chloe's spirit, a vibrant spark that pushed against the abyss threatening to consume them. "Together," cried Lisa, squeezing her daughter's hand tighter. "We can break free." The ground shuddered violently, fissures opening up, amplifying the resulting chaos, but they stood firm. Each heartbeat resonated with the truth they were linked by something far more powerful than fear. "Take my hand, Chloe," Lisa urged, feeling the pull of the darkness lessening as they both reached towards the light. In that moment, they surged in unison, the darkness shrieking in agony as they pushed forward, breaking the hold of the shadows. "You're stronger than this," they silenced by embracing the light, every word carving through the oppressive air. The figure began to dissolve. Folds of darkness peeled away as blinding brightness enveloped Lisa and Chloe, illuminating the cavern with fire-like intensity. "No, you cannot escape," the creature roared as the shadows shrank back, screeching in panic. Clenching her eyes, Lisa focused only on the warmth pressing against her skin, the connection with Chloe burning bright. "We're almost there," she shouted, propelling them toward the glimmering light that promised an end to the nightmare. A wave of sound erupted around them, a mix of cries and laughter, a balancing act of love triumphing over despair. Then, with one final push, they lunged forward together, and the brightness consumed them, swallowing the darkness whole with a deafening blare. The light erupted, shooting upward like a flare, scattering the shadows into nothingness. Lisa and Chloe were released from the chasm's grasp, landing softly on a vibrant green field drenched in the welcoming rays of sunlight. The air was fresh, a stark contrast to the suffocating grasp of Daggerlin. Gasping, Lisa pulled Chloe close. "You're safe. You're here," she whispered, heart racing with relief. Chloe looked up, her eyes wide and filled with the innocence of a child who had just escaped a terrible nightmare. The shadows had lost their grip on them, but as they stood, the memory of Daggerlin still lingered, a haunting reminder of fear and sacrifice. Yet here, in the light, they were untethered from the bonds of darkness. Mommy Chloe's voice, fragile yet free, trembled with relief as she rested into her mother's embrace full of warmth. "I'm okay." "Yes, my love," Lisa said, cradling her daughter tighter. They shared a moment of peaceful silence, letting the warmth of the sun wrap around them like a blanket. In the distance, old whispers faded into the breeze, remnants of Daggerlin dissipating with every step they took away from the darkness. A second chance. A fresh start. Where do we go now? Chloe asked, her voice brightening with curiosity, as they began to walk towards the horizon painted in colors bursting with hope. We go home, Chloe, Lisa replied, heart full, stepping forward into the new beginning that awaited them with open arms. And as they walked away, the shadows of Daggerlin seeped back into the earth, resting, but forever waiting for the next soul drawn to its cowardly call. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share this video. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this heart-stopping ending. And remember to instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support matters. Let us keep the stories coming.